So service manipulation in Linux is primarily done with two different tools, system and systemctl. Now, it is generally a good idea to know system and systemctl because some systems only have one of those installed, so knowing which one to jump to is definitely going to be useful. For example, let's go ahead and SSH into our redirector here. 172, 100, 110. Now this is a very stripped down version of Debian here. If I run service, it says command not found. I can even do a which service, and it can't find it. That's because it does not exist on this box. So knowing your systemctl commands like this is extremely useful to be able to manipulate and change different services. Now let me go ahead and get another terminal opened up here. So I'm SSH'd into the redirector and then I have my local terminal here. Let's say I do a service SSHD restart. This is applicable because you ran this in a couple of other videos, right? We made some changes to our SSHD configuration, and then we had to restart those services to make sure it was still successful. So service SSHD restart, awesome, pops up. It says, hey, you need to authenticate. Cool, just restarted, we're good to go. But then on the redirector, if I do service SSHD restart, command not found. And that's because the service command does not exist on the redirector. I installed a very stripped down version of Debian, right? However, if we do systemctl restart SSHD, you'll see that it was gonna work. I just have to have privileges again. Always gets me, right? It's okay if you run the command wrong and have to go fix it. So let's do systemctl restart SSHD. Bingo, we're good. So knowing both is super important. Now let's run through some RTFM commands that can be useful. Number one here, we're gonna do systemctl list unit files type equals service. This is gonna list existing services and their run status. So you can see if they're enabled, if they're disabled. It is always a good idea to have just a general concept of what's installed on these machines, what's configured. You can see if SSH is enabled, right? A lot of useful information here. If I hit Q, it'll bounce us back here and then we can jump to the next one here. So if I do systemctl list unit files type equals service, we can put that into grep. And then we can look for a specific service, such as SSH, right? Oop, looks like I made a typo. Awesome, it looks like it's running through, right? So it's gonna pipe all that to grep, which is gonna pull out just the lines that match the letters SSH, and this is what we get. And we can see here our SSH services are enabled, and then you have your SSHD service here, which is just an alias, and that just means it points to another service that's loaded, likely this ssh.service, and that's likely for backwards compatibility, so you can reference whichever one, and it'll still affect the proper service. The third command here, service status all, is gonna list all services. And bear in mind, if you look closely, you'll see this is using the service command, not the systemctl command. Again, depending on what version of Linux you're on or what's loaded, you may have one and not the other. You'll see all the different services that are loaded or enabled on this host. You have your de facto service, put in your service name, start. This is gonna start the service. And then you have your service stop. That's gonna stop the service. You can get the status of a service by doing service name status. This can be helpful just in case the service crashed. A lot of times it's going to give some feedback to the console of why it failed. I know for me, setting up Tomcat or some web server with services, a lot of problems there. It can definitely error out, and you'll be able to read your errors here and fix it or get it working. And then the last two commands here, systemctl disable, and then you put in the service name. That's going to remove the service from auto starting. Again, let's say you're on a local network you don't really trust, you don't want SSH starting on the system every time it starts, go ahead and do a disable on it. That's gonna make sure you're protected. Or if you wanna bring it back, we'll do a systemctl enable SSH, and that'll go ahead and mark it for auto run. So yeah, not a ton to this section. However, managing services, auto run, disabling, just seeing what services are installed are all important things to know. Hopefully the RTFM comes in handy for you in that respect. So that's a wrap on the Linux tools section. We covered SSH tunnels, keys, TCP dump, a ton of different utilities that will definitely come in handy as you're conducting red team operations. If you click through to the next video, we're actually going to use all the tools, all the concepts we taught in this section in the specific scenario. I'm actually going to SSH up to our red team redirector, secure it with IP tables, and then set up a couple of SSH tunnels to redirect all this traffic back to our Kali machine. We're then going to set up the command and control tool we're going to use throughout this whole video library. We're going to be using Sliver, which is just awesome. So click through to the next video and you can see all of this applied in our red team scenario. We'll see you there.